Good afternoon. I'll pick up a little bit where I left off, talking about the nature of consciousness and how we basically create our reality by investing and deciding that we want to have what is around us. So when we all decide that ice cream is good, ice cream becomes a part of our culture and it's a shared reality. So we choose our own reality based on what we identify with and what we agree with. Right now, the Matrix is a system of kind of being constrained and forced to choose things, saying, okay, you have option A and B, but none of them are real options, but you have to choose anyway, and they've created this illusion of choice. So voting, for the most part, is this illusion of choice. One, giving two options that none of them are good options, and two, the fact that the actual ballot casting has anything to do with the voting process is professional wrestling. It's done for hype, it's done for attention. So we create our reality by exiting the matrix by creating the reality we want. And when we all say, I'm tired of the nonsense and lies, I'm tired of people feeling pain and wanting others to feel pain with them. That doesn't make sense. I don't want to do that anymore. This is how we start to change our reality and say, okay, how can I express this in a way that is going to be heard, and how can I create more of what I want? It's a constant challenge in our day-to-day life. How do we create our reality amidst a bunch of other people creating their reality, which is holding everybody back? So we kind of have to find little gaps that we can work with. We have to show people that our way is more fun, can accomplish a lot more, showing how a meditative state of mind can come up with solutions to problems very rapidly, how just being happy and buoyant most of the time is a superpower in this day and age. We're taught to be miserable all the time. Our bodies and our minds and our emotions are all taught to be miserable and reinforced to be miserable in every little method. All of our food making us really sick, our air being toxified, our water being toxified, our parental system and our school system being highly toxified, making sure no single person gets to be in modern civilization without being exposed to emotional torture. We inflict emotional torture upon everybody. We say, any pain that I experience, I want those people immediately around me to experience that pain. And then we consider higher forms of being in the matrix to be holding on to that pain and not expressing it right away, waiting until we find a target to release it in a much more intense way. So this is a slave system. We basically say, I get whipped and then I whip someone else, or I get whipped and I'm smart, so I don't whip someone right away. I wait and then I find the right person to whip. This is all slavery. This is all how we keep ourselves enslaved. And so the love revolution, the revolution of the heart, again, I'm hesitant to use the word love because love can be thought of as a feeling. And then we get into the second chakras, which is where all the problems come from, these voices of emotions that tell us things but shouldn't be given the mic, shouldn't have a whole story time. They should just tell us what they need to know and then be put in their place. So we create our reality of what we want to experience by experiencing it. It's a fine line between surfing where we can have an impact on people and where people are not going to completely reject it. Because if we dumb ourselves down or simplify too much, or just are not present enough with our experience when we're just having our own experience, then people don't really necessarily notice it, or they notice the parts that make them uncomfortable only. So finding a way to really express what we're experiencing in a way that makes it seem attractive, find ways that people can buy into it, but mainly just being super consistent with it. And over the months, if you see someone every day in a social setting, over the months they'll just start to say, hey, what is this? How are you always this way when I'm up and down? Being in a meditative state doesn't prevent ups and downs. It makes us so we have a more evenness, because we experience being in a state of knowing and being in a state of persistent curiosity. So that which we don't know excites us, the learning process of uncovering what we don't know, and then creating more space and more curiosity and filling in more structure and creating larger structures. So as we get new ideas, we expand our mind, and then it leaves a bunch of more space. So it's a continual process. But again, finding the points at which we can be applicable and when we just need to leave. There's so many situations. I mean, the movie The Matrix is such a great example. This is all direct metaphors. Everything in the movie The Matrix is based on a modern interpretation of The Matrix, of Babylon. So there are many times when our hero just simply said, oh shit, they're pulling out all the stops. I'm not prepared now. I just got to run. That was like half the movie is him running away. Like they're all just like, fuck, we can't win this battle. We want to fight battles we're gonna win. So the running is a big thing, like desperation running, really, just like all forces out to get them running. And then when they go to battle, they tend to want to be planned and backed up, and know what they're doing. Having trained to a sufficient skill level that you can stop the bullets. I see bullets as like negativity is emotional slavery, trying to enact negative emotional patterns, trying to control people through their emotions, saying for hurtful words to bring people down. These are all bullets. And so when we can alchemize the experience and say, I empathize with that, and I've removed that from my being through love and curiosity to a point where as soon as I see it, I start loving it, and open up my curiosity to, oh, who is this person that is expressing this state of consciousness, which is not so healthy? What can I do here to help? So when we can alchemize in the moment, we can stop the bullets. They no longer affect us. We can, just freeze time, look at them, examine them, check out the angle, push them to the side slightly, step out of the way. It's super easy. Once we develop that relationship with those triggers. But generally, people who are really committed to darkness, committed to unconsciousness, are just going to continue to find a way to be negative. They don't care if one of their bullets is shot down. So at a certain point, if they're just not responsive to the presence of more consciousness and curiosity, then it just becomes time to walk away. And I think that everybody in the spiritual community who's really invested in self-study, not so much the community aspect or the spiritual labeling aspect, people who are dedicated to their self-work have all experienced this. We all know that, simple things like finding a place to live and settling down with a job and building a social circle are next to impossible, because no one wants to hear who we are, what we're going through. Only other people that have experienced it can relate to it, and not even all of us want to hear about it or experience it the same way even. There's plenty of people that have awakenings, are continuing to awake more and more. They're still on such a different path. I think dharma is the term that's used in Hindu culture. We have such a different dharma, or what we are supposed to learn and what we are supposed to teach and how we are supposed to be in the world is so different depending on what our mission is. Discovering what our mission is the most exciting thing in our life, because once we identify our mission, we're like, oh shit, this is my mission. I can just go ahead and do my mission. I don't need to wait for morality. I don't need to wait for a job that can give me justification. I don't need support networks to tell me I can do this. I know it's my mission. I look back at my life. I see myself in the same situations where I'm able to have these dynamics affected. I'm put in a situation. For me, I'm put in a situation where people in power who have never reached touch with themselves, never embodied themselves, or have lost touch with themselves, I'm in a position where my simple presence is enough to show them, oh, hey, yeah, this is what I used to have, or oh, hey, this is how I can take things further. And it has nothing to do with what I say, because the mind wants to play all kinds of games and wants to fight, and the emotions want to play games and fight. So there's no real lower form of communication that'll get this across. It's higher communication. It can take the form of commanding, of talking to someone's higher self, but people's lower self often interrupt that process, so it's a narrow window. You gotta listen for the moment when someone's higher self is receptive, and then get a message in quick, because that can be a matter of moments, less than a minute sometimes, that you can have a long dialogue, placate their thoughts, placate their feelings. They get to this little neutral zone where you can slip a few pieces of information within that context, and then they slip back into their normal way of being. So we can't expect to change people too much. We can't expect to try to change people. I know that we're not supposed to, quote unquote, not supposed to change people, but in reality, we're all people. We're all trying to get our needs met. We're all changing each other all the time. And most of the people that are really good at changing other people are doing it for malevolent reasons. They're doing it to better themselves and to continue the slavery of the system. So when you have someone who's trying to uplift other people, and you're trying to go out on a limb, and you're trying to present information in a way that's going to be well received, it's really important to try to do this every once in a while. So basically, there's a whole new industry. Lightworker industries have been springing up all over the place. It's basically just like, yeah, all those thoughts and feelings that we have that are uncomfortable and we want to deal with them. Here, I know how to deal with this. Look at me, experience how I've dealt with this. Just soak up this experience that you can experience. It's not a thought or a feeling. You are drawn to me because I do this, and this has become a business. We help people through to the next stage of their evolution. Again, there's no institutions around this. I mean, we have ashrams in India and that kind of thing, but in this country, in the United States, and I haven't heard about too many of these things in Europe, most places in the world, we don't have access to this, so we do it spontaneously ourselves. I've heard this called the standalone complex. When there's a need within a culture, people will stand up and fulfill that need, and the only real stopping point is people that want to prevent that need from being met. So, governments will step in and prevent standalone complex from happening because they see it as an uprising, a threat to their power of control over other people. And again, the nature of power is that third chakra is personal power, and so people that have personal awakenings don't see this. They never reach their third chakra, so they conceptualize the third chakra as power over others through emotions and through identity. And so they haven't actually made it all the way to their third chakra. If people aren't displaying the ability to have power over themselves, if all they do is suppress their emotions and then find someone to attack with their emotions, they're not even in their third chakra yet. They're not really conscious beings. And so much less than half of their being is conscious that they're running default programs. They're running other people's computer code. They're running the Matrix computer code, which includes the subfiles of Mr. Smith. So basically, anytime says, "Oh, that person has something I want," but I don't think I can have it because I've been told I can't have it. So I need to make them wrong and make them hurt and make them suffer and make what they have seem like it's less than it is, and be as vicious as possible because society has told me I'm doing the right thing here. So I've talked about this. Doing the right thing is this concept that society has and cultures, toxified cultures, have built up around enforcing negativity by calling it doing the right thing. So when a parent is mean to their child, it's because they're doing the right thing to teach them a lesson. as if parents really have that much to teach their children. I think that the primary role of a parent is to make sure your kid doesn't die and make sure he has food and clothing. And beyond that, I think parents do more damage than good to their children because rarely do people resolve their emotional difficulties or their trigger points before they have kids. And so conscious parenting, I think, is the most important thing that's going to change the world, is parents taking self-examination seriously, taking the parenting process seriously, thinking about it as a process. I think that there's so much fear and there's, again, so much toxic programming. We're told that being mean is good. We're told to send our kids to school and be bullied so they get desensitized so they're able to deal with the world. Well, is there something wrong with this picture? Shouldn't we be teaching all of our kids to get along so that we don't have bullies anymore? So that we're, building things together? Can you imagine if classrooms were responsible for creating solutions, creating tangible projects that affected their communities? Every single person that went to school was in the process of building something that would directly benefit their community. What kind of world would we live in if teamwork was promoted instead of hostility? In the 70s, it was considered normal for teachers to be physically abusive to their students. Like, this is ridiculous. We're living in the dark ages still. We're just coming out of the dark ages right now, and so the Dark Ages will seek to hold on to itself and reprogram everybody into continually staying in the darkness. So finding the fine line where we can be stable in ourselves and get what we need to survive. This often means living on the fringe, part in the country, part in the city, so we have access and not too far removed, but can relax. This often means being very selective with the work we take and the social circles we hold space in, because awakening is such an all-encompassing process. It affects all of who we are and all of what's around us, and we really need to be careful what medium we're exposing that to. I was just recently told that my workplace is not a suitable place to be intelligent or to have interest in spiritual awakening or to have self-accountability that makes other people too nervous and uncomfortable. So I was told that I should move on unless I want to really dumb myself down and make myself seem like I'm less than I am and make everybody feel happy around me. Root out their insecurity, deal with their insecurity for them. It's this is, when you say it in plain English, it sounds crazy, but this is what happens at every single job place everywhere across the country. No boss or no manager really wants anybody to be smart or wants anybody to be spiritually awakened or even wants teamwork to happen, because teamwork is a threat to authority. They want controlled teamwork. They want teamwork with a certain amount of resentment, teamwork with checks and balances and controls that incentivize people to be abusive and controlling over others. yeah, I think I was talked about this in the writing that cruelty is incentivized. So we live in a system where cruelty and greed are incentivized and like heavily, heavily, heavily incentivized. If you make it to a certain level in income, all of a sudden you have all these options of how to make more money easier. How to like get out of jail free cards for anything, any problem you could come up with are one of the bonuses of greed, reinforcing greed of saying, oh, just be greedy and devalue your fellow humans to make money off of them, and then you'll get these free passes to do whatever you want in life. This is a toxic system from top down. So creating our own microstructures, really constantly evaluating what we're doing, because we have masterminds, criminal masterminds that are orchestrating a pattern of toxicity, and are looking to coerce and co-opt every single thing, either steal it or toxify it. So the Back to the Land movement started in, who knows when they started, but ancient Rome used the Back to the Land movement. Basically because they knew every human has a calling to be on land that's sacred and to have a sacred relationship with that land and to build that. That's part of being alive. So the Romans were they were having all their royalty die out because only nobility could fight in the war. You had to be of a noble family, a landowner, a citizen. And if you weren't a citizen with a landowner, then you couldn't fight in the war. So they started this whole thing of you'll have a plot of land if you go fight for 10 years and survive, and you come back and you'll have land. So they were sending technical landowners. They were creating a new paradigm for what a landowner meant. Someone who is conscripted to war, who would be given land afterwards. They were given the title to their land, but who knows if they survived long enough to make it. So that was like one of the conceptual births of modern day slavery. Is like, conceptually give someone something that elevates them to a level where they have all these extra responsibilities, but really don't actually give them anything. Just keep them in the state of heightened responsibility and lower ability to receive. So anybody who owns land or owns a house knows how ridiculously hard and expensive it is just to own land and just own a house. Some states that are less inhabited have it much easier because there's just a lot less money in that industry, and so people aren't as excited about making money off of it. But places like New York and California are just crazy. Real estate and housing is just absolutely insane. Paying between 50 to 90% of your income on housing is normal. I think it wasn't that long ago when it was 3 times. Rent should never cost more than 3 times your income. That's a certain baseline, and that wasn't that long ago. But now all bets are off. We live in a crazy world where owning land is so impoverishing and so challenging that it almost makes more sense to rent now. It's crazy that the cost of maintaining a house and paying taxes and extra fees is ridiculous. So the ability to be alive is definitely kind of the contention point of the Matrix of like, okay, how many aspects of being alive can we take away from people and still have them be alive? It's an exercise in cruelty. Operation Paperclip is where we basically continue the Nazi experiments in our country. Supposedly we only did it for the mathematical and scientific genius to build rockets to get to space, but these were the scientists that were doing all the evil experiments, and now we pay them. So now we pay their kids, and it's ridiculous. We're conditioned to mediocrity, so we're conditioned to say, oh, fast food's not that bad every once in a while, even if it doesn't actually have real meat in it. If it was 5% beef in a hamburger, it's fine to have chemicals that we know degrade the nervous system, irritate the skin, cause hormonal imbalances, as long as it's just small amounts of it. It's normal. It's toughening us up. We're better people because we can tolerate small amounts of chemicals which disrupt our body and our nervous system and our hormonal system. And anyone who complains about having toxicity in chemical form in their food and in their water and in their air and in their products should be labeled as difficult and crazy. And we should normalize toxicity is essentially one of the things the Matrix likes to do. Normalize it. So food, body, awareness of body. Awareness of body is such a trifling thing. I think it's all about our internal state. Food is all about emotion. And so this whole game we play of whether someone is thin or whether someone is fat, I think is irrelevant. I think that our bodies operate optimally at a certain level, and it's up to each of us to find that, and we can look to other people that are super healthy to get a sense of what that range looks like. But I don't think taking a statistical average or relying on a federal body to come up with numbers around this makes any sense. And we all know that the fashion industry is, its own form of art. It shouldn't be taken that seriously. It's art. It's having fun. It's representing concepts and ideas and feelings. But the whole idea that we should be concerned about that kind of stuff. We should be concerned about being healthy and feeling good. And there's certain cultures that are really big into, physical appearance. It all comes down to the physical appearance. That when we overly concern ourselves with physical appearance, we give it more power, and all of a sudden, who we are becomes secondary to our physical appearance. And again, another part of the Matrix is that psychologists are supposedly the masters of the Matrix because they're all about illusion. They're all about appearance and manipulative wording. Psychology is all about the human mind, and when you want to get ahead in life, you manipulate people around you to get ahead. This is like the not awakened. This is the partial awakening to the first and second chakra. And so basically, no connection to higher source, no connection to just the concept that we can all get what we want if we all focus on creating what we want. Like this is laughed off and ridiculed, and so part of the way the Matrix stays intact is by ridiculing and laughing off the things that would defeat it. So calling things hoaxes and conspiracy theories. A significant amount of time and effort and money has been put into these counterintelligence operations. These are counterintelligence operations. When people are ridiculed for being mystics and seeing into the future, when a clown is made fun of, I mean, we all probably got that one at some point, made fun of a clown because we were taught to do that. It's a form of cruelty. It's completely unnecessary. These are the things that would help us the most. So people that have conspiracy theories are people that see patterns that other people don't want them to see. Clowns are, look at the Joker at a deck of cards. These are very, very ancient. The clown and the Joker is such an ancient concept, and it's so important that it's been mimicked in so many aspects of life. The clown is the person who can get away with saying the things that no one else can because of the Matrix. And even the people in power recognize it's important to have this joker or this clown, because if no one is voicing what everyone is really feeling deep inside, everybody's going to get so pissed they're going to revolt. But if there's a clown, then the people who feel like they want to revolt will be like, oh, my pressure is eased because I see someone who's expressing this for me. And the people in control are like, oh, my people are feeling eased out of their bondage, out of their torture because someone is empathizing with them. So it's a delicate relationship. I think when kings held courts that had jesters in them, the jester position was the literal manifestation of this relationship. So the jesters were often killed because they said the truth. Very, very interesting role. But traditionally, the role of the jester and the minstrel and the trickster and the wild wandering person have all been the same. It's to share information that in a tribal living where we don't get a whole lot of outside information, and these people bring outside information, which is very healing because we get stuck in our patterns, and when we see things from a new light, a new perspective, it's a healing process. Also, the minstrel, music, theater, and drama are all about healing. And the ancient Greeks developed drama as a form of healing. They're like, their doctors were like, the most effective form of healing is not natural plant medicine. That's the second most. The most effective is being alive, is experiencing emotion, is contemplating deep thoughts, is being exposed to different concepts of God and different relationships between gods and God and people and all the fractals that can come out of being, exploring what it means to be alive in a very deep, tangible way. Sound vibration was so important to theater, creating those amphitheaters so that people's words would resonate through and everybody sitting in the audience would feel the words because of how loud it was amplified. So again, another form of control of the Matrix is to artificially cycle people through thoughts and feelings so that they feel like they achieved something or concluded something or made progress or feel better, but just meaningless cycling. So if you've ever had an argument with someone and then you find you have the same argument a week later and a week later, especially between couples, this is just that playing out. It's focusing on what doesn't work instead of focusing on what works. It's creating problems instead of creating solutions. So basically, I feel that everybody can benefit from meditation. I've heard these memes going around. What if everybody was taught meditation in school? We'd have no violence anymore. I think, well, yeah. If we were all focused on self-awareness and self-reflection and supported each other in our processes, then we would solve these things internally with other people's support, and we wouldn't be externalizing things as a desperate last gasp. I mean, when we're cruel to other people, this is usually an act of desperation. It means we've reached the end of our rope. We haven't found a way to process this internally, so we're externalizing it because it comes up under pressure. So creating groups that are tolerant of each other, tolerant of expressing genuine presence. I still have not really experienced genuine presence making it over into the mainstream. There's a lot of interest. There's a lot of interest in tantric workshops, which is all about the power of presence. But these tend to be, end up being minorly sexual, and more people just not reaching higher states of consciousness, just using it as an isolated form of meditation to experience the body or experience a vision. But generally, genuine presence is something that people want and don't know how to get, because it means abandoning our comfort zones. It means rejecting the matrix. To be genuine, we have to reject everything that everyone has told about us. So we have to be outcast to be genuine. Literally, like the definition of being genuine in this society is an outcast. There's a number of documents that talk about how spiritual awakening will happen mostly to the outcast, because everyone else is too busy with their programming. They fit into a system, and they're busy fitting into the system. And those among us that are not busy fitting into a system, because the system never really makes sense no matter how hard we try, are not supposed to fit into the system. We're supposed to evolve and show everyone around us. It's like evolution. So when you have a number of success strategies, one of them is kind of way different than the rest and seems to have a hard time with a lot of different factors, but then all of a sudden it makes sense and it's able to succeed in much larger ways than the rest. All the rest of the ways phase out and only remnants of them survive, and this new system just takes over. So at first it's kind of walking on gangly legs and kind of doesn't know, dramatic new evolution. It's fast, so it needs some refinement. And it also just has to happen. This has to happen now. We don't care if there's conditions that are going to help this. We just have to do this now. It's also really interesting to see how we're very rarely concentrated in one area. People awaken in almost like a network grid that was planned out. And it's almost like there's a command core that's saying, okay, activate these nodes so that we can build this link. We've been monitoring these people's emotional states from afar, and we know that their energetic vibration is sustained above a certain point. They're ready for an awakening. Let's give them a little zap of a little code that they're probably going to pick up on and have an awakening from. So if they're not ready, they probably won't awaken. So again, spread out. Joyful. I love the internet because I love that I can connect with people that are very far away, because there's so few people in my area that are interested in higher states of consciousness. Everybody that I know around here, in San Francisco, everybody that I've met, every interesting person that I've met, none of them are very profound because they don't take God seriously, and they don't take their relationship with God as a constant evolutionary process. They either disbelieve in God because of the dark forces confusing religion, making religion about bad things instead of just about clarity and truth and love. And basically, all we can do is try to find ways that we can keep going. There's not a whole lot else we can do other than say, okay, what's my next step? In any scenario, remember meditation. That's like the best thing we can do in pretty much any scenario. Is what is it? What comes to me when I identify all my thoughts and feelings around this, express them either written or verbal or in some appropriate way. What is left after all that? And in my contemplation, after I've identified my thoughts and feelings. Because we need to create the solutions. The solutions aren't necessarily out there. They have been. They're in the Akashic Record, but they're not being practiced right now. So us as activated nodes need to start practicing all the skills that we've gotten. And again, finding the fringe where people are exposed to what we're doing, but we're not too much immersed in that, because the sacrificial lamb principle is one aspect of the Matrix in Babylon, where people are told to hold on to all their pain and release it in appropriate times, and they're told that the best time to release their pain is when everyone else is releasing their pain on someone. the sacrificial lamb. Oh, let's all release all our pain and suffering on someone who is having pain and suffering being released onto them because it's happening. Like someone allowed that to happen to them. Someone forced that to happen to another to someone who couldn't escape it. And now, oh, there's an open. Now we can all dive in on this. So this is something I've experienced, and I've seen it in the literature of awakening. This is like an archetypal experience of awakening. If you look through the stages of disbelief, or the stages of emotion of disbelief and fear and resentment and all this stuff, you can just apply that on a society as a whole. And we can see how this is a natural dynamic. This is not, I mean, this is bad behavior. This is toxic behavior. This is not people being bad people. It's people who are unwilling to take ownership over themselves, so they are not themselves. We have a lot of corpses, as someone used the term. A lot of corpses on this planet who occupy space and take. And they've just been infected with a zombie virus that says they're just supposed to eat each other's brains, and they don't know any better. And they have, we're taught to get excited about the car we can finally afford, from the job we finally got, from the school we finally went to. And, where's the point in all that? No, just focus on the fact that you have a fancy car now, and you have to make payments on that, and insurance, and then you're going to buy a house eventually. That's going to occupy until you're 60, and then you're going to be so worn out from life, you're not going to be able to enjoy life anymore, and you're, try to seek retirement and doing as little as possible. This is, again, something that, that we're known for in this country, particularly. More ancient cultures don't let their governments fully get away with it. They still get away with murder and all kinds of crazy stuff, but they don't let their society their government fully get away with it. They say, we know what it means to be alive. We have rituals around being alive, and we're not going to let go of those rituals. It's treating time in different ways, having a siesta, not having a 40-hour work week, which is kind of insane. There's a number of different points at which they all collectively say, we are human together, we need this, we value this. In the United States, we're so desperate, we have so little culture in our country that things like Halloween are our culture. We don't have other forms of culture. We don't have celebration that feels genuine, so we have disingenuine celebration that we try to find meaning for, which is ridiculous. I mean, we do it because we need the outlet, but it's ridiculous that that people are going to drugstores and buying costumes of celebrities who don't have anything to offer society, and then going around eating candy. How does this make sense? Like, why don't we just have a holiday that says, life is challenging, let's have fun today, or that says, everybody in our society fulfills a role. Let's have a day where we just be thankful that everybody fulfills a role in society, and just go around congratulating and asking what each other does and what the most important of their job is. I mean, we can create culture. We can dress up in our work uniform, or we can have artistic versions of our work uniform. We can create holidays that support what we want. we don't have to put up with holidays that confuse us, that are essentially bastardizations of ancient holidays, ancient rituals that had meaning and had purpose. Halloween, for example, is the time of the year when the veils are the most thin. So the 99.9% of real reality around us is more visible to us than we feel and experience it more. Nights are super long, so in that absence of light, there's more room for darkness and shadow. There's more of unconsciousness, but there's also just a thinning of the veil. So energetic reality becomes more of reality during these times, whether it's positive or negative. So All Hallows Eve, or however you want to say it, is like the best time to meditate throughout or one of the best times to meditate throughout the year. Solstice and equinox are, again, great times. There's not much that's grander than the relationship between our planet and the sun. That's kind of the most grand thing in our reality. So anytime that we're focusing on that is more truthful than almost anything else we can come up with. It is much larger than us. It's our home and our source of being alive. I wanted to really touch on the chakra system and how it's just a simple way of talking about being human and the different aspects of being human that are fairly complex, energetic aspects. So our heart is basically like our version of a sun. Our heart is what pumps blood through our body. It has the most large energetic field of its own, so it is most of our energetic fields. So our heart is our sun pumping animus to us. It's not feelings. I'm going to say this again. So I think that almost everybody we're going to ever talk to in our life is going to refer love and feeling as the same thing. And so I'm going to be saying this, I think, for a long, long time. A heart is genuine curiosity, a desire for more knowledge, and without demand. In a loving, gentle state, the heart wants to know more. The heart is curious and enjoy is the simplest way I can put it. Whereas feelings, questions that come from our emotional body are going to be, might be demanding, or they might have an ulterior motive. I think most questions that come from our emotional body are not the questions that are being asked. They're a way to ask for different information without appearing, because we don't feel comfortable asking for the other information. So I try to use this process where if I'm going to share any information, especially when I write, that I try to make multiple editing passes, and I try to edit out my emotional body, because my emotions don't need to be in my writing, because emotions will say anything. They express and feel, and they're dynamic, and they'll take control. They don't have an organized message. They'll just take control and do their things. So really important. Also, when talking with people, it's the same way. We really have to have an editing process. We really need to think about what we're going to say and what we want to express before we say it, and then we need to identify how that makes us feel and what our strategy is going to be so that our emotions don't overtake us when we're trying to say it, especially because everybody around us, the Matrix, is saying if emotional control is how we do things. This is our modern slavery system. We emotionally control each other. So if someone is expressing emotional weakness, we're going to capitalize on that. So it's very difficult to be genuine or to explain the difference between the heart and the emotions without people attacking us. It's something we can really only embody and find little subtle ways to say, oh yeah, like anyone who likes Rumi, that's a great starting point. Anyone who appreciates Rumi at all, because Rumi is constantly talking about the fact that we need to be detached from our emotions and we need to follow our heart. He says this over and over again. The heart has infinite wisdom beyond our mind, or beyond the rest of our capability, and that our emotions are just these crazy animals that kind of romp around and do their own thing. Our emotions are often used by our spirit. So emotions can respond to any number of things, but when our spirit is trying to tell us something, we usually have very, very, very intense emotions around this. I experience this as I get wonderful sleep. I sleep like a baby, and my favorite time is when I lay out on my back just before bed and just like experience the sensation of laying down. I love it so much, and wake up in the morning. I'm so excited to be awake. I just forgot what I was saying. Anyways, so we basically want to find ways that we can remain in our personal power over our emotions. Listening, that's what it was, listening when our spirit has something to say. If I get like a burning anger and I can't even sleep at night and I'm just thinking about this, it usually means my spirit is saying, hey, resolve this, figure this out. If it's involving someone else, go to that other person and resolve it with them. If it's someone that I can't go to, then remove them from my life completely, because if my spirit is yelling at me so loud I can't even sleep because of how angry I am, that's saying something. I'm a pretty mellow guy. It takes a lot for me to want to sustain anger, because I don't see a point in sustaining anger. I can create new boundaries that encapsulate what I've learned from the anger. I can see how things feel disrespectful and create new boundaries. And so any new scenario, all of a sudden I'm not allowing whatever bothered me before. But basically, if something is bothering me that much, I need to figure out what it is. So spirit can talk to us through emotions, but we generally want to reach a place where we're examining our thoughts and our feelings to the point where we're able to process them. And thoughts and feelings that arise because of other people generally are no longer sustaining problems. We are able to deal with that. And then every once in a while one gets really intense, like, oh, I gotta dig deeper. So the tangible way I do this is I experience where the pain is in my physical body that's representing it. When I think of something and I feel a discomfort, or I think of something that bothers me and I want to eat, all of a sudden I try to figure out where in the body it is. I send in all my chi to there. I just like flex all my muscles slightly and direct my energy, direct my intensity to that area, and I experience that area specifically. I play out a very quick silent drama of it. I exemplify the pain, and I almost revel in the pain. I let the pain wash all over me and say, this is excruciating, this is horrible, and it is no longer a part of my being. And then I just like lift it up out of my being, and with focusing on my chi. So I'm literally kind of like sweating, using all my focus, very intense process, and lifting it, visualizing it, tangibly feeling it, being lifted out of my body. I often see it as kind of like a slimy ooze with tentacles. The tentacles are trying to hold on as I'm lifting it out. So it's slow and steady lifting it, and then once I get it far enough away from me, I just like let it up into the sun, or give it up to God, or throw it out of my existence. Any metaphor works. So that's a tangible practice of alchemy. I've heard a couple other people describe processes that are similar. But again, that feels a little on the crude side to me. It feels very real and tangible, and so I'm going with it. But I do have a sense that there are simpler forms of alchemy once I get more familiar with the process. This process was given to me when I went to Mount Shasta like 2 months ago, so this is relatively new for me. Really tangible alchemy is relatively new to me. All right, well, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. This has been a lot of fun.